Hi, welcome back to Agile, Scrum and Kanban series. This is BS Satyadev. In the last presentation, I talked about various estimation techniques. When we need estimation, what is estimation, we discussed about that, right? In this presentation, I'm going to talk about Scrum metrics. Like I said in my last presentation, estimation is a technique not just for Scrum. It could be used for Kanban and other models also. Now let's talk about metrics, and these metrics are mainly for Scrum only, not for any other Agile. So only when you are following Scrum methodology, then you use these metrics. First of all, let's understand what are metrics. Why do we need metrics? Metrics are nothing but a a summarized view of how things are going, a numerical way of representation of how things are going, or pictorial representation of how things are going. It should give a clear understanding. When you see a metric, it should give you an understanding of things are going good or bad or okay. No, it should give a clear understanding, and they are measurable kind of thing. Those are called metrics. Now, why do we need metrics? The metrics are very important because we want to know how the status of the project. Now, the major part of the project, which is kind of unclear, as I told you in my previous presentation, is the development, testing, and deployment pieces. These three pieces together actually are a bit confusing on how much time it could take because you don't know. Because the analysis phase, there are not too many people involved. The cost of analysis is not that much. Similarly, design phase is also not too many people involved, and it's not actually product is delivered or anything like that. But when it comes to development, there are so many people involved. There is a lot of fuzzy items, things to unclear items. They are the actual people who does the work, right? So we definitely need to understand how they are doing, what's their output. Is the output is aligning with the final delivery is aligned with what we are planning and stuff like that. In waterfall model, all we do is to have estimations and we used to have metrics, but those metrics are based on this functionality is done, yes, so 1 by 10. After 10 functionalities, 1 by 10. It doesn't really talks about what is the complexity of this functionality when compared against other functionality. No, those things are not there. But as I discussed in my previous presentation, agile stories are measurable. Like we point them, right? Agile stories and features are measurable. So features we said, like we do t-shirt sizing. Even for t-shirt sizing also we can give numbers using Fibonacci, but that's different thing. But at least for stories, we do give some numbers. Based on the numbers, we know how many points a team delivered in a sprint, right? Which is called the team velocity though. So which can be represented very clearly. So based on, because of this point system that we have for stories, we can have better metrics. Now let's see what are those metrics. Now Scrum metrics. As Scrum is a time-boxed and iterative framework, its metrics are often focused on predictability within sprints and the item's capacity to deliver. Scrum Masters create Scrum reports, and few of them are given below. Now, as I just now read, these basically based on the team's capacity. Again, is team capacity going to be the same for all sprints? No, because some people may take holiday leave, so, and there could be many holidays in one sprint. There could be sudden big issues because of some technical challenges and stuff like that. So it is not necessary that team can deliver the same kind of thing and the same thing, but we want to know what's happened, how things are going. That's when we use the Scrum metrics. Now, as I told, the important thing about Scrum metrics is about the story points. As we have points for stories, we use them as a measurement. The first metric that we are going to discuss is team sprint velocity chart. It can be called team velocity chart or sprint velocity chart. So it is represented by the number of points the team can complete in each sprint, or average number of points completed by team until the last sprint. Now, as I given a picture here, you can see the gray is the estimated. That means team has said, okay, there are 5 stories in this we have taken in this sprint. Each story, this story takes 2 points, this story takes 5 points, this story takes 3 points. Total 10 points, right? 3 stories, so 10 points. Now that's the estimation that they do in the sprint planning meeting. So once the planning is done, they start working on them, right? Execution. The next day onwards, they start executing those. I mean, the same day itself, they start executing this. But in reality, it could take less time or more time for the same thing. That's what the green bar shows. So the gray bar shows the actual estimation. Green bar shows the actual completion time. Now, if you compare sprint 4, 5, 6, in sprint 4, the estimation and the completion time are almost same. Sprint 5, it's a bit less. Sprint 6, the completion time took more than what is estimated, little more. But this way you can understand. Okay, team is by seeing this graph, I can definitely tell. Okay, team is doing good, not bad, right? So there is no huge difference between gray bar as far as the height is concerned, gray bar and the green bar. Green bar is the actual time that team took. Gray bar is the actual estimated time that they have in the sprint planning meeting, right? So sprint planning, sprint review, that's when we compare, right? So how much these actually metrics are done by the Scrum Master or Product Owner. So sometimes if there is a Scrum Master, he or she will do this, create these reports or metrics. Metrics kind of same. Metrics reports, right, basically. Or, if there is no Scrum Master, Product Owner himself or herself will do these metrics. This is the first way. This is the team velocity chart. Now, second type of metrics are burn down charts. These are very, very important. Burn down charts are visualization graphs drawn for the work that is being completed by having timeline on the x-axis, story points on the y-axis. An ideal trend line is drawn from zero timeline, target story points to be completed, to final timeline to be reached, zero story points remaining. This is how we draw the graph, which is a kind of a straight line. However, the actual progression graph is a polyline that should hover around the ideal trend line. If the team is slightly behind the schedule, then the polyline goes above the ideal trend line and vice versa. Now, what does it mean? When do we use burn down charts? Now, the way it works is, the logic is simple. Let's say at the beginning of the quarter, there are 3 features to be done. And all the features have stories, right? The team has estimated all the created stories estimated. In the beginning, they said like all the 3 stories, let's say 100 points together. I'm just giving a number. There are 100 points of stories. That doesn't mean that each story has 100 points, or if you sum all the story points of all the stories, the total is 100 points, right? This is 100 points. Now what they do is they chart a graph. In the first sprint, how many points are resolved? 10 points. That means you get a line. Again, if in the first sprint also, say 100 points are remaining, that means you get a straight line. Whereas if you get 10 points done, 90, so the straight line will go down little. Like that, they draw a line. So that means it's a burn down. You have the points that needs to be burnt, and slowly you are burning down the story point. That means you are slowly completing the story point sprint by sprint. That's the graph. When it is estimated, it will be a straight line like from top to bottom. Whereas when they are started working, actually the actual line would not be straight line, right? It will hover around that line, because like I said, the capacity is not going to be the same in every sprint. Some people will, take holidays. There are so many hiccups, could be anything. But it should not deviate too much, right? It should hover around that line. That's the burn down chart. There are 2 types of burn down charts. One is release burn down chart. Another is sprint burn down chart. Release burn down chart talks about the entire. That's what I gave the example. Like, in this quarter, we want to deliver 100 points. Put 100 points. See the graph. That's actually given visualization or metric to the product management and the program management and the business people. However, if team wants to understand how they are working, then they need sprint burn down charts. This is for the team. It is what is release burn down chart? It is the visual representation of work that is being completed throughout various sprints of the project. X-axis contain the sprint numbers, or y-axis contain the story point. Now, what is sprint burn down chart? It is the visual representation of work that is being completed throughout current sprint. The x-axis is the sprint days, and y-axis indicates story points. Let's see them. So now you can see there are 120 points. You can see that this red line, right? So to do, that means in the beginning of the release, you can see this is release, right? The release, you have a line, a red line. That means this is how they have to be burned down, right? But in reality, that's not how it was done. You can see initially it went up. That means it's behind the schedule. That means it is taking more time to burn those points. Now, after some time, it's come down. That means we are ahead of schedule. Again, it's again going slightly went back to the ground. So it may not be. I mean, this is just an example, and these are the sprint numbers, and these are the story points. You can see the line. The actual line is burning down, coming down. Right. That's the it's called burning down. It's for the entire release or the entire quarter, whatever. Or 1 year. It could be defined as 1 year or half yearly, based on the company policy and stuff like that. Similarly, sprint burn down chart. We want to burn down 50 points in this sprint. This is how we had done. Like it should come down to 1 point. Whereas the actual work, this is actual work completed. So, here you can see behind the schedule, and after some time we can, we are ahead of the schedule. Like that, it's just hovering. But uh, and at the end of the sprint, there are still some 10 points remaining, right? That's what it says. Like, yeah, there is some problem. Again, this is pretty normal. I mean, this is pretty normal, and this actually gives a good representation of how things are going, right? So that's this Scrum metrics. Another metric is burn up charts. This is a very interesting chart because most of the tools that product owners or product owners or Scrum masters use, burn up charts. They don't go for burn up charts. Normally, you don't see burn up charts as a thing. The reason is burn up chart shows if there is any extra work that is added in between. That means management has added more work in between. That is the reason work has increased. So I'll talk about that burn up charts. So let's see what are burn up charts. Burn up charts are, in a way, they are kind of opposite to burn down charts. Burn up charts are visualization graphs drawn for the work that is being completed by having timeline on the x-axis and story points on the y-axis. The trend line in burn up chart is not a straight line but a polyline that clearly depicts the work changes, how much work is added or removed at different times against the original plan, which is a very useful thing to know for the developers, not for the leadership team, right? So that's the reason most of the time, we don't see burn up charts, but they are there, and you can draw them and you can show. Even there is a debate of okay, why a team is not able to produce. If the team is able to show this burn up chart, yeah, see the extra work is given to us, they can definitely argue on that. The actual progress graph is also a polyline that doesn't hover around the trend polyline, but should meet it by the end of the project. This compares total user stories against the completed user stories. I'll show you those things. Again, just like burn down charts, burn up charts are two things: release burn up and sprint burn up. Let's see them in picture. You can see that this is the graph, right? This is the to-do thing, and the blue thing is like a scope script. Like you can draw that a scope script. You can see that means until now the story points are not increased. Like you can see these are the story points, right? Suddenly story points, and that means 20 story points added. Like you can see 140. In the beginning there are only 120 points until fourth sprint approximately. In the fourth sprint it gone to 140, like 220 points increase. Now you can't see this in burn down chart. You can't see that. So and see again they decrease these things. So that's the reason. So basically in burn up chart, burn down chart, you just you up. It's from top to bottom. Whereas burn up, it's like this is how we run. It's like up thing, and how we team is like doing. This is green thing, right? So this is the green thing is the actual value. Similarly for sprint burn up, this is the um, you know yeah, blue is the completed, red is the, you can see there is a jump of work, right? So post jump story points, so from 30 to 32 to some 35 or something like that they increased. So that's how you can see Scrum metrics. So basically we talked about majorly three metrics. One is sprint velocity or team velocity, burn down chart and burn up charts. Thank you.
Like, share, comment, and subscribe VNR Digital Learning Resource YouTube channel.